I'm fairly certain that on paper, Inception is Christopher Nolan's best movie. Interstellar, by comparison, is flawed, cliched, and technically messy. But I'm here to tell you that Interstellar is the better movie. For years, I thought my preference for Interstellar was just me being a contrarian. But then something strange happened. I started to hear normies raving about Interstellar. You know what I mean by normies, not movie lovers like us, but the sort of people who say shit like, I can't remember the last time I went to a cinema. 4K? I don't think I've seen that one. I watched a movie on Netflix last night with Adam Sandler. It was brilliant. Normies. But why did they prefer Interstellar? They may be wrong about a lot of things, but a stop clock is right twice a day, and I've got an internet-friendly list of arguments to prove it. Let's punch it. Before I dive in, I'm afraid I've got some unsettling news. My producer Wendy has run the numbers, and the data doesn't lie. YouTube is dying. We're going to keep making videos for now, but in the meantime, Wendy is going to try and find us a new home. Anyway, in Inception, we're told that Cobb can't get back to his kids, but if he pulls off the Inception job, he'll get to see them again. This is a solid need for our protagonist, and it creates stakes. The problem, though, is that while we understand those stakes on an intellectual level, we never really feel them. We don't really stop to consider the feeling we'd get if we couldn't get back to our kids, because the movie never shows it to us, and so the emotion is always at arm's length. That is not an issue with Interstellar. We start with Coop, together with his kids, looking out for them, raising them, connecting with them. And then we have to watch him leave. We understand the reason for him doing it, but the want for him to get back to his kids is so much higher because we understand how much it hurt him to make the choice he made. Not only that, but the movie splits between time with Coop and time on Earth, so we also see the impact it has on Murph. Inception is a riveting heist movie, but because the stakes are never sold to us on the same level, it never hits as hard. Imagine if Cobb had come out of the dream world and realised that years and years had passed and he'd missed his kids growing up. It would be dramatic, but it wouldn't have that emotional resonance that we get when Coop watches those videos. Okay, Wendy, where are we travelling to first? Vimeo? No, it's no use. This place is devoid of all life. Just a desolate wasteland. Let's keep trying. In both movies, we have the character level stakes and then the big picture stakes. In Inception, the character level stakes are the only ones we care about. Admittedly, as well as Cobb trying to get back to his kids, we have the stakes of what's going to happen with Mao and what's going to be the fate of the other characters. But in Interstellar, we have similar with the fate of Coop's crew, especially Brand. Where things differ is on the large scale. In Inception, the stakes around getting Fisher to break up his company are only really there to make the plot work. Saito cares about it, but the audience doesn't. In Interstellar, the stakes are the survival of the entire human race.
Mustn't be afraid to dream a little bigger, darling.
And it's not just this nebulous idea in the background. We see the toll that the Earth is taking on the people who live there. And because of the interesting times we live in, we know how scary it is to see a planet going to hell while we watch on helplessly. Coop's mission isn't just something with stakes, it's something that feeds into our fundamental hopes and desires about our own species. In Inception, we want to see how they're going to pull off the impossible so we can be impressed. In Interstellar, we want to see them succeed so we can feel hopeful about our own world and time again. Speaking of time, Wendy is telling me that we need to travel through time to a place called Facebook. No, Wendy, we've gone forwards rather than backwards in time. This is where people come at the end of their days, or when they're trying to give away old furniture. While these movies are similar in structure and use similar techniques, they are, of course, different genres. And while genre doesn't define how good a movie is going to be, it does still make a difference. Heist movies are designed to be smart, entertaining movies that lead you one way and then surprise you at the end. Ocean's 11, The Sting, The Italian Job. But even when these movies surprise us, we know approximately where they're going. In a movie like Interstellar, we are well and truly travelling into the unknown. Why does that keep happening when I say that? Watching Interstellar for the first time is to feel like an explorer alongside the characters, constantly asking the question, what happens next? What will be on the next planet? What happens when you dive into a black hole? Hey, what's Matt Damon doing here? And while both movies give us cool visuals that we haven't seen before, Inception's are designed to be things you wouldn't really see in reality, whereas Interstellar's visuals are all tantalisingly possible. You mean that's what a black hole would look like? You mean that's what planets in another solar system would really be? It's thrilling stuff, even to people who don't understand any of the science behind it. Okay, we're travelling through time again, this time to a place called X. Ugh, no, Wendy, we went back in time, but we've gone back too far. It's just Nazis everywhere. Well, my dad was a YouTuber, like everybody else back then. But then the black came, celebrities, TV shows cut into clips, podcasts, videos. We still had plenty of videos, but mostly we had ads. I guess I can't describe it. It was just constant, this steady stream of noise. Pre-rolls, mid-rolls, sponsorships, Patreons. We used to try to skip past them, but if you got fat fingers and a smartphone, you'd end up going too far. We used to stop watching again halfway through a sentence and hope we could work out what they were talking about. Dark times. Small folk. They got us through. Welcome back. Wendy is still trying to find us a new home. Next up is a place called Instagram. Well, they have plenty of food, I'll give them that, but I don't appreciate how well everyone seems to be doing. There's a lot of success and fun here. It's not somewhere we belong. Hans Zimmer's score for Inception is fantastic. It's one of our greatest composers giving us one of his best scores. The Interstellar score leaves it in the dust. I remember adoring it on release, and it still gives me chills on rewatches. I don't know enough about music to explain it properly, but the score feels vast and unknowable. When Kubrick needed that kind of music for 2001, he went back to some of the greatest classical music ever composed. Zimmer just said, "Hey, Johann Strauss, hold my beer." And you know the score's on another level when you start to hear it in different places. A YouTuber needs a clip of Professor Brian Cox explaining something to sound epic. Yep, there's the Interstellar score. I'm trying hard, but I feel like I'm really struggling to explain this properly. Oh, I know. This is your normie audience member. You know, the sort of person who watches movies with a big light on. And this is understanding a Christopher Nolan movie. Now, as you can see, the gulf between these two things is so wide that they can never touch. It's a little hard to comprehend because the human brain isn't designed to understand the sheer amount of space between these two things. But what the music does is bend reality and then punch them in the face with the emotions they're supposed to be feeling. So they get some level of understanding. I set this up as a joke, but that actually really works as a metaphor. You know what? I take back my feelings on the pen and paper scene. It works. Interstellar is a flawed movie. There are discrepancies in the plot and scenes where the themes feel a little shoehorned in. And in the third act, it asks you to take a sudden, much larger suspension of disbelief than it had up to that point. And I get it. If you think the scene with Bran talking about love is jarring, you're not wrong. If you think it's odd that the crew gets out of Earth's gravity well with a huge rocket with a lot of fuel, but then later on just has a lander that can magically get in and out of orbit of planets, I'd agree with you. If you think the whole sequence at the end in the Tesseract goes from sci-fi to fantasy, I don't know if I can argue with that. But despite all those flaws, I just don't care. Bran's speech is clunky, but a sci-fi story based around the notion that love is an elemental force, not something we created, but something we tap into, just like gravity or radiation, is fascinating and moving. The discrepancies in tech are a little jarring, but they mean we get staggeringly cool sequences, like the water planet, that to me are well worth the hand-waving. And the Tesseract sequence, it's just awesome, man. It looks amazing, it's emotional, it's pulse-pounding. I don't care that it's a bootstrap paradox. It ties the movie together in a clever, fulfilling way. And that then leads to an emotional climax that is so much bigger than anything in any of Nolan's movies before or since. It takes a story of desperation and despair and sacrifice and ends it with catharsis and hope. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people think Interstellar is Nolan's best. Speaking of desperation and despair, we're starting to run out of options. Okay, let's try LinkedIn. Okay. Wendy, if we could work out a way of pushing this place out of orbit and into the black hole, that would be good. That's my arguments for Interstellar. I completely understand why some people didn't take to it on release, but I'm glad to see that its reputation seems to be improving over time. What do you think? Let me know in the comments, and whether you agree or disagree. If you like this video, please consider hitting the like button. It really helps out the channel. Look, Wendy, we've been all over and haven't found any new potential homes. Are you sure that YouTube is dying? Why else wouldn't our videos be getting any views? Yeah, you're right. It must be YouTube.